sufferings, being wounded is the experience of every human being. Doesn't matter how old you are, what culture you belong to, what kind of family origin you have, all of us experience being wounded. This is the fact of life. We can't, even we try to avoid being wounded, avoid the experience of suffering. But suffering is the reality that we need to embrace. We need to enter into the wound of our own life, our own experiences. We will discover that the wounds of our life can be blessings, can be the moments when we discover our true self, can be the opportunities for us to cultivate our virtues, to maximize our gifts. Or if we avoid and running away from sufferings, the experience of being wounded can be a curse that keeps us in the imprisonment of the tomb of yesterday. Jesus, I was wondering why the resurrected Lord allowed his transfigured, resurrected body still carry the wounds of his nails, of the spear penetrating into his side. Why? I think he wants to remind us that he is really loving us so much. He is completely human. He shared with us the experience of sufferings, of being wounded. Look at his life. He was wounded because of the betrayal of Judas, the kiss that betrayed him, that sent him to the cross. He was wounded because of Peter denying him 3 times. He was wounded because of all of these people opened their arms, receiving so many blessing, healings, and liberating graces from his hands. Now become the hands which say, crucify him, crucify him. When he was nailed on the cross, he was alone. Fortunately, his mother was there, and his beloved disciple John was there. But the rest, perhaps a few more women, they didn't mention, because the man who wrote the account feel so ashamed that they didn't want to include the woman. Brother and sister, Jesus was wounded, but he was willing to be wounded because he loved us so much. Brother and sister, have you ever experienced someone who is willing to be wounded because of you? If you have, you count your blessing. If your husband or your wife or any significant friend who is willing to take all of the things that you scapegoated on them, and all of us have a tendency, because if we don't deal with the hurts, the pains of the past, if we are not willing to deal with our wounds, we run away from the tomb of yesterday. We avoid to face the wounds, to go deep into our woundedness, our wounds, we will tend to be wounding others. We tend to release our tension, our hurt and pains by projecting and by scapegoating, putting everything on others. Jesus became the perfect scapegoat. He took all of the problems, the sins, the woundedness of human nature, human hearts on himself. But he accepted it with love, with the grace of God, with the love of the Trinity, the Father, the Son, and his own love. And this love was so self-empty, so forgiving, that love was able to transform the poison of the negative experience of being betrayed, being hurt, being denied, being abandoned, being rejected, being tortured, into the medicines of the healing power, which turn all the wounds into the fragrance of forgiveness and love. You know, I've been ordained a priest for 33 years. I didn't even come to this moment of awareness of Jesus' love. Jesus has been the wounded Redeemer who's loving me so much. Until I remember a few years ago, I worked in China, for almost like 6 years. 10 years in Taiwan and 6 years in China. I did a lot of formation work for the catechists, married couples, and a lot of religious priests and sisters. And at the end, the communists did not want me to continue to do this work, so they put pressure on the local church. And I remember for 1 year and a half, every day, I was attacked. I was accused, I was persecuted by all of the unjust accusations and terrible treatment, so that they want to push me out, voluntarily remove myself from this country. I love China, I love the people. I did so much work there. The people, they're like a sponge, You give them a little bit, they just get everything. They hunger, they thirst for love. During those 1 year and a half, I was really become the victim of all of the attacks, the onslaughts of accusations and everything. I remember one night, I was so desperate, I was so full of anger and resentment. I was kneeling in the church in the dark night, about maybe 12:30 more. I could not go to sleep, I went through many nights asking myself, why, Lord, why these people treating me like that? I sacrifice everything. I just come here, volunteer myself to do everything for the people, and they need my service. And why did they treat me like that? I was full of anger and resentment, negativity in my heart. I remember at that time, I just listened a voice speaking to me in the solitude of my heart. I loved you. I was wounded by you too, many times. So I want you to love them like I love you. Boy, how you say that? That moment was so powerful, it's most like a pierce. It's penetrating into my heart and opened all of my mask. I was assuming that I really know how to love. I was assuming that I was the ambassador of love. I was assuming that I know the Lord, but I did not. At that moment, God broke my mask. And I would, for the first time, feel vulnerable. And I, for the first time, realized that I don't know how to love. So I was lying on the floor, asking Jesus, teach me how to love the unlovable. At that time, there was a flash of memory of all the things I did in my life. And how many times I really did not really do the right things. And each time in the flash of memory, I received Jesus open his arm and embrace me and kiss me like the father kissing the prodigal son returning home. When he smelled bad, when he looked like a prisoner, a homeless man. It was the first time in my life I experienced God's love. For the first time in my life I experienced Jesus' wounded love, but that love was so deep, so profound, that it was able to liberate me from all of my anger and resentment in my heart at that time. And I was asking for the grace to have the courage to go into the tomb of my yesterday, to go into all of the experience of my being wounded, whether justly or unjustly, whether people intentionally or unintentionally hurting me. I just ask for the grace to turn the stone over and take a long, loving look at its experience of my wound. Later on I discovered that the moment when we go back and deal with our wounds, we will discover that all of these are not obstacles preventing us from being fully alive, but actually we can turn them into stepping stones to pave the road to our future, to make us become more capable of being compassionate with others, more loving toward others, become builders of communion. Brothers and sisters, all of us have our wounds, but as Christians, as followers of Christ, as the believers of the resurrected Lord, now we must have the courage not to live in the tomb of yesterday, the tomb of our own wounded past, the tomb of our hurts and our pains of the past. Let us embrace our wounds. Let us, like Thomas, Jesus asking him to enter into his wound. The only way we can enter into our wounds when we enter into the wounds of Jesus, to experience how that wound stays full of the fragrance of that love, that sacrificial love. When you experience that love, then nothing is impossible for you to embrace. There's nothing is unlovable that you cannot love. That after that experience, I got up in the morning. I don't know what happened. I was converted. My eyes were open. My heart was open. I was not resentful anymore. I looked at every single one who was accusing me, attacking me, lovingly. I feel so sad for them. Why? Because they never get a chance to live in a free country. They was under the pressures of the totalitarian system. And then they have so many other struggles. All of the problems they have to wrestle with. I become much more sympathetic and understanding. Slowly, I think the grace and love of God, the love of the wounded Christ has changed my heart, make me able to see from his own perspective how each one of us is so lovable in spite of our unlovable aspects of our life. So, brothers and sisters, when we run away from our own wounds, our hurts of the past, we will have a tendency to wound others. But the moment we embrace our wounds, we work with our wounds, we deal with them, and we wrestle with them, and sometimes we cannot find the answer. So what? Just stay in the act of wrestling with the mysteries of the sufferings. Then you will discover that the wrestling of suffering, the wrestling with the wounds, will season your heart with tender mercy and love, and make your heart become more expansive to embrace more people. And we will be able to transcend our egoistic tendency, and we will make our heart more like Christ. And when we do that, brothers and sisters, our hearts are full of the Holy Spirit, and everyone encounter us who have the same experience like Thomas, an encounter with God, my Lord, my God.
Please like, subscribe, or comment below.